my name is Eitan. I'm a PhD student in public policy and political science at the University of Michigan in the United States. And I'm here as a research fellow at the Populi Center. I study issues related to social accountability in Southeast Asia, and I'm currently doing some preliminary research in Indonesia. So, what is social accountability? And why is accountability and social accountability important? So, when we think about the quality of democracy and governance in general in different countries across the world, we want to know how can we get governments to better meet the needs of ordinary citizens, of their constituents? What are the ways in which governments can provide the best quality services and reflect the interests and the priorities of citizens that elect them? So there are two traditional ways in political science that we think about of mechanisms to improve government accountability. One is vertical accountability, which refers to, in a democracy, you have elections in which citizens can vote for politicians that they think are doing a good job or will do a good job in the future, and they can vote against incumbent politicians who are doing a bad job. So that, in a good functioning democracy, is a key way that you can have accountability. But the problem with vertical accountability alone is that elections only take place once every few years. So how can citizens be sure to keep track of the progress of how their politicians are performing in between elections? How can they make demands to insist that politicians perform better in between elections? Another form of accountability is horizontal accountability, and that involves accountability mechanisms within the government. So in democracies, we often have different branches of government: the judiciary, which consists of the courts. We have the executive, consists of the presidency and ministries and bureaucracy of government. And we have the legislature, the parliament. And each of them are supposed to hold one another accountable. Many governments also have independent agencies that are part of the government that can investigate different parts of the government, things like a human rights commission or an anti-corruption commission like the KPK here in Indonesia. So when the parliament tries to hold the executive accountable, or the courts try to hold the executive or the parliament accountable, that's horizontal accountability. But horizontal accountability also alone is not always enough. Sometimes different parts of the government don't want to hold each other accountable. They might be engaged in corruption together, or they're just not interested in being more accountable. Or they may lack the capacity to improve the quality of accountability in different parts of the country, especially a country as large as Indonesia. So that brings in the third type of accountability, which is the focus of my research: social accountability. And social accountability entails having groups of citizens, often in the form of civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, or community-based organizations, that come together and try to make government more accountable to citizens on a regular basis. And this can involve monitoring of government activities, things like a social audit, where civil society organizations look at government budgets, at government procurement data. They look at the quality of schools, of health clinics, of roads, and they complain to the government if the quality is not up to their standards, and they can inform ordinary citizens about what they find. They can also engage in direct advocacy to the government and push the government to be more accountable to the interests of citizens or to the interests of their group. They might advocate for better education, better healthcare, for particular religious policies, for women's rights, all kinds of issues that civil society organizations can be engaged in. So social accountability can help strengthen both vertical accountability mechanisms and horizontal accountability mechanisms. It can strengthen vertical accountability mechanisms by giving more information to voters about the quality of current politicians and government officials, so when voters go to vote in the next election, they have more information from the help of civil society to know who to vote for. It can also help horizontal accountability by informing different parts of the government about what they find. So if they find something that they think might be corruption, civil society, they can report it to an anti-corruption commission, and that can trigger a horizontal accountability mechanism in which the anti-corruption commission, for example, investigates a politician or another government official. So I'm interested in studying these things in Indonesia. I think so far there's evidence that all of these kinds of accountability are working in some places really well. The quality of democracy and governance is really high in some parts of Indonesia and for certain types of governance. But there's also still a long way to go to improve the quality of governance and accountability in many parts of Indonesia. So I want to see to what extent civil society is playing a positive or negative or neutral role in improving the quality of governance at different levels of government, particularly in cities and regencies, so kota and kabupaten, and down to the local level, the village level, desa governments. How well does community participation and local community-based organizations do to get governments to implement budgets and to provide services that are what regular people really want and need. So I'm starting to research these issues here in Indonesia, and I'm grateful to the support from the Populi Center to help with my research here. Thank you. Terima kasih.